Some wounds don't bleed. They burn. Long after the last shot is fired, long after the world tells you to heal, the embers stay, hidden beneath the skin, smoldering in silence. Daniel thought he had found his footing again, a shaky piece, a place to stand where the ghosts couldn't reach him. But peace is fragile. Healing isn't a straight line, and the past has a way of finding cracks in the armor you thought was unbreakable. This isn't the story of a war ending. This is the story of what comes after the war tries to follow you home. And sometimes the hardest battles are the ones no one else sees. Now the smoke is rising again, and this time Daniel will have to decide. Will he be buried by the ashes of his past, or rise from them? Before we dive into part 2 of this thrilling story, let us know where you're watching from today. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. They hold up in an abandoned ranger station about 2 hours north, one of Naomi's safe houses, apparently. Daniel didn't ask questions. He was too busy checking sightlines, escape routes, vulnerabilities, old habits that had once kept him alive, and nearly killed him just the same. Night fell early in the woods. Heavy snow coated the ground, muffling everything into an eerie, almost sacred silence. Inside, the station was bare bones. One wood stove, a few cots, an old radio crackling static. Daniel sat by the window. Rex curled at his feet, while Naomi tended to Sammy's cuts with quiet competence that said this wasn't her first time doing field medicine. Daniel watched them, something sharp and aching moving under his ribs. Family. The word hit him like a body blow. He shoved it away. Family was weakness. Family got you killed. Hadn't he learned that lesson enough? Naomi finished with Sammy and came to sit beside Daniel, passing him a tin cup of black coffee. So bitter it felt like penance. "You ready to talk yet?" she asked. Daniel grunted. She waited, silent, patient. He hated that about her, hated how she made the silence heavier until he had to fill it. Finally, he spoke. "It wasn't an accident," he said roughly. "The girl in Fallujah, Sammy's sister, she wasn't just caught in the crossfire." Naomi's eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She only nodded once, slow and grim. Daniel laughed bitterly. "Of course you already knew." "I knew there were questions," she said. "Knew there were reports that didn't add up." He stared into the coffee, the reflection of fire twisting his face into something monstrous. "It was a bad op," he muttered. "Bad intel. We weren't even supposed to be there." Naomi said nothing. Daniel forced the words out like knives. "Matthews panicked. Shot a civilian. We tried to cover it up. And then the roof exploded. And I chose him. I left her." His voice cracked. "I left her die." Silence, except for the crackle of firewood, the slow churn of snow against the windows. Naomi's hand closed over his, firm and grounding. "You were 21 years old, Daniel," she said. "Thrown into hell, given a gun and a lie, and told to be a hero." She squeezed once. "You're not God. You're not a monster. You're a man who survived something no one should have to survive." Daniel closed his eyes, swallowing hard. Maybe, but survival came with a price. And the bill had finally come due. From the corner of his eye, he saw Sammy watching them, silent and wary. Not a boy, not yet a man. Another casualty, another mirror. Daniel knew then, deep in his bones, that the past wasn't just a thing to confess. It was a thing to fight, not just for himself, but for Sammy, for Matthews, for the girl in the street, for all of them. Outside, the trees groaned under the weight of ice and wind. The world was holding its breath, waiting. Daniel flexed his hands, feeling the old scars pull. He wasn't the same soldier who had gone to war, and he wasn't the broken man who had come back, either. He was something else now, something harder, stronger. "Ready?" He turned to Naomi. "We fight," he said simply. A small smile ghosted across her face. "Good," she said, "because they're already here." Daniel froze. Rex growled low. Sammy stiffened on the couch. And outside, shadows moved between the trees. Coming closer, the first gunshot cracked the frozen air like a whip. Daniel barely had time to shove Sammy behind the stove and flatten Naomi to the ground before the window shattered inward in a spray of glass and snow. Rex lunged his feet, snarling, his hackles bristling. Outside, shadows moved 3, maybe 4 figures, advancing fast. Professional, efficient. Daniel's brain shifted gears without thought. No fear now, only the cold, precise calculus of survival. He grabbed the old hunting rifle Naomi had stashed behind the stove and chambered a round with a brutal, mechanical snap. "Stay down," he barked at Sammy. The boy nodded, eyes huge but steady. Good kid, brave kid, too young for this. But then weren't they all? Another shot tore through the door. Daniel ducked low, firing once, twice, driving the attackers back into the trees. Rex charged after them, a blur of teeth and fury. "No!" Daniel shouted, but it was too late. Rex disappeared into the storm. Daniel swore and grabbed Naomi's arm. "We move. Now." She nodded, already herding Sammy toward the back exit. The ranger station was no fortress. It was a coffin waiting to happen. They had to run. They burst into the night. Snow blinded him instantly, a wall of white swallowing the world. But Daniel didn't hesitate. He knew these woods better than he knew his own scars. He led them down a narrow trail, boots crunching hard over the frozen ground, heart hammering in time with the shots still ringing behind them. More shadows emerged ahead, traps everywhere. No way out but through. Daniel shoved Sammy into Naomi's arms. "Get him to the river," he yelled. "Go!" Naomi hesitated for one agonizing second. "I'll find you," he promised, voice ragged. "Swear it," she shot back. "I swear." And then they were gone, vanishing into the blizzard, leaving Daniel to face the ghosts alone. The first attacker came at him from the left, a tall man in black, rifle raised. Daniel dropped to one knee and fired low, aiming for the femoral artery. The man screamed and went down hard. Another closed in from behind. Daniel spun, slamming the rifle but into his face. Feeling bones shatter under the impact, he kept moving, kept breathing, kept fighting. Flashbacks bled into reality. The alleyways of Fallujah, Matthews screaming orders, civilians crying in the smoke. The desert heat mixed with the blizzard's bite until Daniel didn't know where or when he was anymore, only that he would not fail again. Not tonight. A figure stepped from the trees, arms raised. No weapon. Just a hooded parka and a voice that cut through the storm like a blade. "Enough, Daniel." Daniel froze, gun trembling in his hands. Because he knew that voice. The figure pulled back the hood. A woman's face. Older now. Harder, but still achingly familiar. Layla, the girl's older sister. The one whose life he had shattered years ago. "I told you," she said softly. "I told you we would meet again." Daniel's mouth was dry as ash. "I'm sorry," he rasped. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Bitter, broken. Sorry doesn't bring back the dead. The snow swirled harder around them, a vortex of grief and rage. Layla took a slow step forward. "You stole my family," she said. "Now I'm taking yours." Daniel's stomach twisted. His eyes darted toward the woods where Naomi and Sammy had disappeared. "No," he growled. "Not them." Layla tilted her head, almost curious. "Why not? You left my little brother to die." Pain lanced through him, sharper than any bullet. "I was wrong," he choked out. "I was scared. I was a coward." Tears blurred his vision, freezing on his lashes. "But I'm not running now." He dropped his rifle into the snow, arms spread, heart exposed. "If you want to end it," he said, voice breaking, "then do it. I deserve it." For a moment, time stopped. The wind died. The trees held their breath. Layla stared at him, fury and sorrow battling across her face. Then she lowered the pistol, not out of forgiveness, not out of mercy, out of exhaustion. "You think death will balance the scales?" she whispered. "It won't." Daniel nodded. "I know." Behind her, more figures moved, her men. But she raised a hand, stopping them. Turning back to Daniel, she said, "Live with it. That's your punishment. And then, like smoke in a storm, they disappeared into the night. Daniel sank to his knees, the snow swallowed him whole. Around him, the world spun. The fight was over, but the war inside him had only just begun. Footsteps crunched behind him. Rex, bloody, battered, but alive. Daniel buried his face in the dog's thick fur, shuddering. Alive. They were still alive. Minutes, or maybe hours, later, Naomi and Sammy returned, faces pale and worried. When Sammy threw his arms around Daniel's neck, clinging with desperate strength, Daniel held on just as tight. No shame, no fear, only love. Broken, bleeding, real. Above them, the storm finally broke. A thin slice of sky appeared through the swirling clouds, fragile but beautiful. A beginning, not the end. The woods had swallowed the last of Layla's shadows. Daniel knelt in the snow, breathing in shallow gasps, feeling every bruise, every fracture inside him. Rex pressed against his side, alive, real, warm. The only anchor he had left in the shifting storm of guilt. Naomi crouched beside him, resting a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone," she whispered. Simple words, small words, but they cracked something deep inside Daniel. Something he hadn't even known was still frozen. Tears welled in his eyes, hot against the frigid air. Not from fear, not from weakness, from release. The boy, Sammy, stood a few feet away, watching silently. His expression was guarded, wary, but in his eyes, Daniel saw no judgment, only understanding, maybe forgiveness, maybe not, but enough to stand up, enough to keep moving. They buried the dead at sunrise, one of Layla's fallen men, left behind by the others, a nameless enemy, or maybe just another lost soul caught between two wars no one had ever truly won. Daniel dug the grave himself, his hands blistered and bloody by the time the rough earth covered the body. Naomi said a few words under her breath, nothing religious, just human. Respect. Rex sat by the graveside, head bowed. Sammy laid a stone at the base of the makeshift marker, small fingers trembling. They didn't talk about it after. Some things didn't need words. The walk back to civilization took 3 days. 3 days of silence broken only by the crackle of campfires and the quiet crunch of boots over frozen ground. 3 days of Daniel relearning what it meant to survive without fighting, without running, without hating himself for breathing. One night, as they huddled under a makeshift tarp, Sammy finally spoke. "Why'd you do it?" Daniel looked over at him. "In the woods. When you dropped your gun." Daniel hesitated, the firelight flickering across his scarred hands. "I thought maybe it was time," he said quietly, "to stop fighting ghosts, to let them take what they needed." Sammy frowned. "But they didn't." Daniel smiled, small, broken, but real. "No," he agreed. "They didn't." Another night. Naomi sat beside him, wrapping a battered blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You could have killed her," she said, voice low. Daniel stared into the fire. "I know." "You didn't." "I know." Naomi tilted her head, studying him. "What changed?" Daniel thought about Layla's face. The grief there, the rage, the unbearable loneliness. He thought about Matthews. He thought about the little girl in the street. He thought about himself. "I didn't want to be another ghost," he said simply. When they finally reached the outskirts of town, civilization felt foreign. Too loud, too bright, too alive. Daniel hesitated at the edge of the road. Rex beside him, Naomi and Sammy waiting patiently. This was the real battlefield, wasn't it? Not the firefights. Not the blood. Living. Facing every ordinary day without armor. Without hiding. Without giving up. He turned to Naomi. "Thank you," he said, "for saving me. For believing when I couldn't. For staying." He didn't say the words out loud. He didn't have to. She nodded once, her dark eyes shining. And then, without ceremony, they stepped forward together. The VA welcomed him back. Another intake. Another file. Another chance. This time, Daniel didn't flinch when they asked him about therapy. This time, he filled out the forms himself. This time, he stayed. Weeks passed. The nightmares didn't stop, not completely. The guilt didn't vanish. But something shifted. Some mornings, he woke up before the alarm, heart steady. Some afternoons, he caught himself laughing at a dumb joke Sammy texted him. Some evenings, he sat with Naomi, sharing silence that didn't feel empty. One night, standing on the porch of his apartment, Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the photo. The girl, the smile, the memory. He traced the edges with his thumb. Then, gently, reverently, he placed it into a small wooden box, alongside Matthew's dog tags, an old map of Fallujah, and Rex's original deployment papers. Not forgotten, not erased, just honored. Part of the man he was, not the man he ran from. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days he slipped, some days the weight crushed him, but other days, the good days, he saw sunlight through cracks. And that was enough. A year later, Daniel stood at a different graveside. Not Matthew's, not Layla's, not his own, just a patch of grass at the local Veterans Memorial, where dozens of names, some known, some unknown, were etched into cold stone. He placed a single white flower at the base. Rex sat beside him, a little older now, a little slower, but still faithful. Naomi waited by the truck, Sammy throwing rocks into the pond nearby. Life, messy, unfinished, beautiful. Daniel closed his eyes, breathing in the crisp morning air. Not every wound had healed. Not every ghost had left. But when he opened his eyes again, he wasn't afraid anymore. The past would always be part of him, but it would not define him. He tipped an invisible salute to the fallen. Then he turned toward the road ahead. One step, one breath, one day at a time. And this time, he was ready. Here's a message from Daniel to you. If you're hearing this, maybe you lost something too. Someone, yourself. Maybe the war wasn't overseas. Maybe it was in your home, in your heart, in the moments no one else ever saw. I used to think survival meant pretending it didn't hurt, fighting down, shutting up, marching forward like nothing inside me was bleeding. But here's the truth they don't put in the movies. Some wounds don't close clean. Some ghosts don't leave politely. Some days, survival is ugly. It's slow. It's showing up when every part of you is screaming to stay hidden. And sometimes survival means letting someone else stand beside you, even when it terrifies you, especially when it terrifies you. I don't have all the answers. I still wake up some nights with my fists clenched and my heart racing. I still carry the weight of faces I'll never forget. But I'm learning that pain and love can live in the same house. That it's okay to remember without letting it bury you. That healing isn't about forgetting who you were. It's about becoming who you're meant to be, scars and all. So if you're standing on the edge of your own battlefield right now, wondering if you got anything left, you do. Take the next step. Breathe the next breath. And when it feels impossible, let someone hold the weight with you for a while. You're not broken. You're becoming. And you are not alone. Daniel,